Today, I'm going to teach you why just 5 grams of creatine per day could be a complete game changer for your blood sugar levels. Now, most people think that controlling blood sugar levels is all about limiting carbohydrates and avoiding sugar forever. And sure, that can help. But they're forgetting about the single most important lever of all, building more lean muscle. And here's why that matters more than cutting carbohydrates. Your muscles are the largest glucose disposal system in your entire body. After every meal, the majority of glucose in your bloodstream is supposed to be absorbed by your muscle cells. This way, sugar can be burnt for fuel or stored as glycogen. When your muscles are dense, active, and metabolically healthy, they act like a giant glucose vacuum. Blood sugar spikes less, insulin works better, your 24/7 blood sugar levels are within range at all times, and the whole system just runs cleaner. But when you don't have enough muscle mass, which happens as a natural part of aging, that glucose that is concentrated in your bloodstream has nowhere to go. Yes, it simply stays in your bloodstream for prolonged periods of time. And that is how people slide into insulin resistance, prediabetes, and eventually type 2 diabetes. Not because they ate one too many cookies, but because their glucose disposal system deteriorated over time. Cutting carbs can reduce how much glucose enters into the bloodstream, but building lean muscle enhances how fast your body clears it. One is a restriction strategy. The other one is a restoration strategy. I am all about the latter, reversal of the root cause. And in my 10 years working as an exercise physiologist focused on metabolic health, restoration of lean muscle mass wins every time. So where does creatine come in? Creatine helps your body build and preserve lean muscle mass more effectively. It energizes your muscle cells so you can train harder and recover faster. And research shows that it directly upregulates glucose transporters inside of your muscle cells. Yes, the ones that are responsible of pulling glucose out of the bloodstream and into the muscle cell. Creatine simply supports the entire system. So let's get right into it. Today I'm going to cover exactly what creatine is and how it works inside of your body, why it's so relevant for blood sugar and insulin sensitivity, how to take it correctly so you can actually get the benefits, and what to do alongside creatine supplementation so your muscles clear more glucose from the bloodstream. And I'm also going to talk about a few other benefits that most people aren't expecting. Let's start with the biggest misconception. Your body is already making creatine right now. The question is it actually making enough to protect your blood sugar levels? The biggest mistake people make about creatine is thinking that it's something artificial, something only bodybuilders take to build big muscles. Your liver and kidneys are producing creatine right now using 3 amino acids: glycine, arginine, and methionine. You also get small amounts of creatine from food, mainly red meats and fish. So creatine has always been part of your biology way before it was put in a tub. And once it's in your body, it goes to one place above all others: skeletal muscle. About 95% of your body's creatine stores is in your muscle. The remaining 5% is in high energy demand organs, like the brain, the heart, and also the nervous system. That distribution alone tells you what creatine was built for. It's not a stimulant, it's not a hormone, it's an energy support molecule for the tissues that work the hardest, starting with your muscle. Inside your cells, creatine exists in 2 forms: free creatine and phosphocreatine. Higher creatine stores mean that your cells maintain higher energy availability more reliably, not just during intense exercise, but during recovery, during cognitive stress, and during the ordinary demands of life. This is fundamental cell biology, and it has enormous implications in your blood sugar levels, which is exactly what we're getting into now. Insulin resistance is not just a diet problem, it's a muscle problem, and almost nobody is talking about it that way. Let's go deeper into this mechanism because this is where truly everything clicks. After you eat carbohydrates, most of the resulting glucose is cleared by your muscle cells. In a healthy, insulin-sensitive person, this process is seamless. Insulin binds to the cell receptor on the cell surface. A signaling cascade fires. GLUT4 transporters, which are like little boats, translocate to the outermost layer of the cell. And then glucose enters the cell with the help of these GLUT4. Once that happens, blood sugar normalizes because glucose went from the bloodstream and into the muscle cell. But when insulin resistance develops, that cascade that I talked about breaks down. Fat accumulates inside of your cells. Insulin signaling becomes impaired. Then GLUT4 transporters stop responding the way that they should, and hence glucose lingers in the bloodstream. And over time, that's exactly what leads to prediabetes and then type 2 diabetes. So the question I have been asking with patients for over 10 years is not how do we suppress glucose? The question truly is how do we restore your muscle's ability to clear glucose? 3 main levers. Number 1, movement. Number 2, nutrition that reduces intramuscular fat that is interfering with insulin signaling. And 3, preserving the muscle mass itself as you age. Creatine touches all 3, directly or indirectly. And real quick, if you want to learn more about how to take creatine correctly to lower your blood sugar levels, go ahead and comment creatine below. We have a free, full guide that is definitely gonna help you out. Research published in the Journal of Diabetes showed that creatine supplementation significantly increased GLUT4 concentration inside of your muscle cells. More GLUT4 transporters in the surface of the cell means better glucose clearance from the bloodstream. And this is independent of insulin. That is a direct cellular mechanism benefit of taking creatine, not a side effect of working out harder. Yes, creatine doesn't just help you work out harder. It directly upregulates the cellular machinery in charge of clearing glucose. That is a very different thing than saying creatine helps you lift heavier weights. However, creatine supplementation without resistance training is like putting premium fuel in a car that never leaves the driveway. The fuel matters, but the engine has to run. So here's where I need to be direct about something that most creatine content that people make rarely mention. Creatine is not a passive supplement. It works in partnership with one specific stimulus: resistance training. And understanding why is what separates people who get real results from people who just take creatine and wonder why nothing happened. Muscle tone and muscle density are not the same as muscle size. You don't need to get bigger like a bodybuilder. What you need is for your existing muscle to become more metabolically active, more vascularized, more mitochondria dense, more insulin sensitive at a cellular level. That adaptation only happens when you consistently apply mechanical load to your muscles. So resistance training is the signal, and creatine is the energy system that allows you to apply that signal harder and recover from it faster. For this reason, and because we care about your health, every order of Jade Supplements Pure Creatine comes with a muscle toning protocol entirely free. A guide that teaches you how to exercise from home or at the gym so you can maximize your results and see your blood sugar numbers drop like never before. If you're interested in learning more, go ahead and comment creatine below this video. Now, I want you to think about what's happening during every set of doing resistance bands exercises, for example. Those muscle contractions physically translocate GLUT4 transporters to the cell surface, independent of insulin. Every rep is a glucose clearance event happening in real time. And the more quality training that you can sustain, the more muscle tissue you build and preserve, and the bigger and more efficient that your glucose disposal system becomes. Every pound of lean muscle mass that you build or preserve is quite literally thousands of additional GLUT4 transporters added to the system. The effect compounds over months and years in a way that no dietary restriction can compare. The Golano and colleagues randomized controlled trial confirmed this directly. Adults with type 2 diabetes who supplemented with creatine alongside an exercise program saw significantly greater reductions in HbA1c, improved glycemic control, and increased muscle GLUT4 content compared to exercise alone. The combination was additive, and kidney function was not affected in either group. Practically speaking, you don't need to go to the gym 5 days a week. What you need is progressive resistance. 2 to 3 sessions per week of compound movements. Basically, movements that recruit large muscle groups. Can you guess why? Well, because large muscles quite literally are larger glucose vacuums. Again, if you don't know how to set up an exercise routine, I'm here to help you. Jade Supplements Pure Creatine comes with a full exercise routine, so you don't even have to think about it. You just have to do it. I got you covered there. Don't worry. Now, you must know that creatine fully saturates your muscles over 3 to 4 weeks of consistent use. Basically, the same window it takes for resistance training to have a meaningful effect in your blood sugar. Both are designed to work on the same timeline. Creatine fuels the work, and the work builds the muscle density. And of course, the density clears the glucose. That is the full loop that I am trying to convey. One of the sneakiest reasons why people stay insulin resistant is that they fatigue too fast before they can actually fix the problem. Creatine breaks that cycle. When creatine supplementation increases phosphocreatine availability, your muscles fatigue less quickly. You tolerate more training volume. You recover faster between sessions. And you stay consistent over weeks and months instead of starting and stopping. And you already know this, but consistency is everything when it comes to metabolic health. People who fatigue easily avoid exercise. People who avoid exercise lose muscle. People who lose muscle become more insulin resistant. Creatine breaks that cycle early, before the decline compounds into something that is much harder to reverse. After 45, insulin resistance doesn't just get worse because you got older. It gets worse because you are quite literally losing the very tissue in charge of clearing glucose. And most people don't even know that this is happening until it's already a problem. Yes, a large part of why insulin resistance worsens as we age is known as sarcopenia, the gradual loss of muscle mass that accelerates after the age of 45. At roughly 1 to 2% per year. That's a lot. Less muscle means less GLUT4 transporters. Less muscle density means poorer glucose handling. The math is relentless here, and most people don't see it coming until their labs are all over the place. A systematic review of 22 randomized controlled trials published in the Journal of Nutrients in 2021 showed that creatine combined with resistance training in adults over 55 significantly preserved lean muscle mass, strength, and functional performance versus training alone across multiple populations. Preserved muscle is preserved insulin sensitivity, period, end of story. And this is exactly what determines your long-term metabolic health. And one more benefit of creatine that most people aren't expecting is that creatine doesn't only work in muscle. The brain is one of the most energy demanding organs in your body. Neurons require constant ATP to maintain proper signaling, memory, and cognitive function. Creatine helps buffer energy in your brain the same way that it does in your muscle. A systematic review and meta-analysis published in Nutrition Reviews found creatine supplementation significantly improved memory and cognitive processing speed in healthy adults, with the strongest effects in older adults and during conditions of mental fatigue or sleep deprivation. Not the stimulant effect, just your brain energy reserves being stabilized. For people managing blood sugar, which is inherently cognitively taxing, that's a genuinely useful bonus on top of everything else. Now, most people are underdosing creatine or skipping it on rest days and then wondering why it isn't doing anything. Here is exactly how to take it to maximize glucose clearance. 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate per day. That is the clinically established dose, and that is all you need. More is not better. Consistency is better. Take it every single day, not just on training days. Creatine works by maintaining elevated stores in your muscle tissue over time. Inconsistent use undermines the entire mechanism. Dissolve in at least 12 ounces of fluid. Creatine has modest solubility in cold water. Use room temperature or slightly warm water and stir until fully clear. Coffee works too. Timing is flexible. Morning, post-workout, with a meal, they are all fine. And stay hydrated throughout the day. Creatine draws water into your muscle cells. This is part of the mechanism of creatine that allows you to recover faster. So if your overall fluid intake is low, you'll feel it. I want to go ahead and be transparent about where all of this comes from. I am an exercise physiologist, and the last 10 years of my career have been specifically dedicated to metabolic health, blood sugar, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes prevention, and reversal. That's the entire focus of my life. I have personally been studying creatine for as long as I've been in the field of exercise physiology, and personally I have been taking it for over 20 years. My A1C is 4.9. My HOMA-IR, a direct measurement of insulin resistance, is 0.8. I am deep in the insulin-sensitive range. And I'm not telling you that creatine is the only reason for those great numbers. Resistance training, nutrition, sleep, proper stress management, all of that matters, and I'll be honest about that. But creatine has been a consistent part of the foundation, and the science behind why it belongs there is real, well replicated, and frankly underused by many people who are struggling with blood sugar problems. Now, let me be equally clear about what creatine does not do. It does not act like a glucose-lowering drug. It does not block carbohydrate absorption. It does not spike insulin or suppress liver glucose output. Creatine cannot override a diet that drives insulin resistance. It cannot replace movement, and it cannot replace the resistance training that we talked about. That is simply a non-negotiable if your goal is to build denser muscle that clears glucose at exponential rates. What creatine genuinely does is fuel the machinery that your body already has to clear glucose. Simply metabolic support, not metabolic manipulation. There is a meaningful difference between those two things. High blood sugar is not a failure of willpower. It's simply a failure of glucose trafficking. Your muscles are supposed to clear that sugar. Resistance training activates and opens the doors. Nutrition removes the fat that has been blocking them, and creatine powers the entire energy system behind them. That's how you restore metabolic health. Not by hiding numbers, but by fixing the root cause at a cellular level. We put together a free step-by-step guide on how to take and use creatine properly, the correct dose, timing, which movements to prioritize, and how to know if it's actually working. Go ahead and comment creatine below this video and we'll send it directly to you. If this video helped you see blood sugar differently, please go ahead and give it a like. Also, subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already, and share this video with someone who might need the help. I'll go ahead and see you on the next video. Take care.